Hi, I'm Drew. Welcome to the Beggars Woodshop audio podcast for this January 2nd, 2021. Thank freaking goodness. Happy freaking New Year, everybody. Are we so freaking happy about it? Yes, I know I'm saying that quite a lot. Welcome. Thank you for tuning into this podcast and invited me into your homes or laps, hands, or wherever you happen to be viewing this program from and whatever device you're using. You are welcome to be here in what is essentially my office. I guess you could say in my room, whatever it may be. If you may or may not know who we are, I don't know why I'm saying we, it's just me by myself. I'm trying to start a program here on YouTube where I build, furniture or any other woodworking item, hopefully close to what would be a regular television series. We have a GoFundMe. I'll have a link into the description for that. But one thing I didn't do in the GoFundMe that I wanted to talk about is the origins of the Beggars Woodshop. Believe it or not, it started all with something relatively simple. A walk. No joke here. I was out walking with someone very special to me, very important in my life. And damn it, I miss her right now. 2020 has not been kind with all of that. And I admit there's also a little on my part as fault. But I won't go into the details, and she will only be referred to as Solitaire. I know that's a name she likes, and I want her to have privacy with the rest of her life. But we were out walking her dog, and her dog had been attacked by some other dogs whose owners were complete jerks. I like to use other words here, but I'm trying to keep this clean. And so after a while of walking, I would always find some kind of large stick or something that I'd pick up, and I could use that just to beat off any animal that has a careless owner or anyone who's not in the right actions. And we happened to be walking one night, and we came past these trees, and I was looking around, and I saw this one branch that had fallen. And that branch was the perfect height for a walking stick. And even Solitaire said, "Hey, that's a great height. You should make that into a walking stick." Well, usually by the end of the night, I get rid of the stick. But this time, I took it all the way back to her place, stayed for several more hours, and then drove home. When I got home, I left the stick in the car. Stupid me. But when I got it out, I went into the garage, and I looked for tools to shave down the bark. Don't exist. Yeah. The rotary tool I received as a Christmas present one year was not going to do the job, because this stick was at least, 5 foot? About that? Yeah, about 5 foot. Maybe an inch or two higher. And I went through all of the tools that we had, and I ended up using a drywall rasp. It seems weird, and I believe that one was the drywall rasp. But it shaved off the bark. I could get down to the good color wood, and it leaves a very unique texture. And this is like a 9-inch rasp, so I can cover a lot of ground. But I shaved it. I bought a nice stain and a little satin polyurethane. I also got some paracord and a rubber a rubber piece to go on the bottom. I can't think of the name. I don't know why. But I had that walking stick, and I took it with me whenever I would go back to Solitaire's place and we'd take the dog out. And I actually would walk home from church with this stick. And the jokes came in, of course. There's the Gandalf joke. There's the Moses joke. Oddly enough, though, I would get another stick for myself later that actually would be taller, and I would judge the height kind of like the one Charlton Heston had in the Ten Commandments. So I estimated how much taller it was than him, and I said, okay, that's how much taller it needs to be to me. And that one, yeah, kind of, the joke still happened, but now it's like, okay, now it makes sense. It's tall enough. But I decided, because we would always find them, Solitaire and myself, these sticks. I decided, okay, I'll make a few. Maybe I'll make some canes. I don't know. I do love a good cane. My first big wood project that I made for class was a cane. So eventually, a friend of mine wanted one. And I decided, okay, I need a name for myself. Well, I have no money. I don't have the tools I need. Poor man's woodshop. Okay. And I even designed a logo. Very nice logo. In fact, it's the logo you're seeing on the screen right now. And I even signed that piece, Poor Man's Woodshop. Well, as I looked it up, someone else had the name. They have a website. So I tried, okay, the Poor Man's Workshop. Nope. Someone else, I think on YouTube is where I spotted it. And I said, oh, come on. I don't want to give up the logo, I thought, but I want a good name. What's my name? And I thought, and what's another name for poor man? And I came up with beggar. And that's the origin of the name, the Beggars Woodshop. And I know somewhere someone would make the argument, you need an apostrophe. Yeah, I'm sure. But let's make it a little unique. Okay. So I've kept myself the Beggars Woodshop. I have made a few walking sticks, but the one thing that I know, if I can't get this thing going the way I want, hopefully enough money can be raised on that GoFundMe that I can at least upgrade my shopsmith to do lathe work. And that's why I have the shopsmith. In fact, you know what? Let's talk about that. My love of lathe work goes back to when I was in college. And I turned on the TV one day and I watched a few woodworking programs, and there came one on called The Wood Turning Workshop. After a couple of episodes, I was hooked. I really was. The host, Tim Yoder, has made a bowl in this one episode, and when it came around again, I recorded it. He took a bowl and was able to get 2 more bowls just out of that one and turned it into a fountain. And I just went, wow. It is disappointing that Tim is not on TV anymore. He was canceled after 2 seasons, but by the time my PBS station got it, he was probably already canceled. But he won an Emmy, oddly enough, right as he got canceled. Fortunately, he is still on YouTube. You actually can find him on YouTube. And you know what? I'm going to leave a link to that YouTube page, Wood Turning with Tim, and you can see some of the work he does. While I was showing off the work of the lathe to several people I know, and at least one person has bought a couple of those pieces I made, a friend of mine said, "Hey, I've got this shopsmith sitting in my shop just, collecting dust. And it's got multiple tools on it if you're interested." And I said I'd look it up. Little did I realize I heard of Shopsmith years ago. Now, after I looked things up, everything started to come back to me, and I realized, wait a minute, this is familiar. And I went to my dad and asked him, the tool Grandpa had, you were talking with the demonstrator of that tool at the state fair one year. Was that a Shopsmith? And he said yes. Boom. My grandfather, according to what I've been able to gather, had a Shopsmith 10E, 10ER. It was one of those two. Unfortunately, I never got to see it. And then again, I never got to know my grandfather. He passed before my parents even got married. But I told my friend I would take it, and it's a little over a year ago now. It was December 2019. And I remember I drove up the hill. Literally, I drove up Highway 50, up the hill. There's a little... If you've never been here to California, when you're heading east on Highway 50, and just as you're leaving Folsom, you are literally driving up a hill. So, I drove up the hill, went out to just on the outskirts of a place called Placerville, and picked up the Shopsmith, brought it down the hill, cleaned it up, got it pretty much running. I had to get a few parts and tidy up a few things, but yeah, it sits in my shop, or my garage, however you want to look at it, and it is a 1954 Mark V Greenie. If you know anything about Shopsmiths, you'll know that's an original. And I know it's an original because it still has the original Franklin motor in it. That's how old this thing is. Now, I've done a little bit of upgrading here and there, and I've bought a few parts on eBay dirt cheap, but I don't have the money to really go further. And especially if I want to do lathe work or anything like that. But hopefully, yeah, I can get things rolling in there. In fact, there's a second unused fluorescent lamp, or not a lamp, but an actual fluorescent light that I can hang in the ceiling to accompany the LED fluorescent impersonator. I call it that because it's really just an LED strip of lights in a fixture that looks like an LED light. I don't know how they come up with that. But, I forgot to mention, how did I start learning how to use a lathe? That's right. Well, in 2019, a gentleman was getting rid of a bunch of magazines locally, and I went and picked them up, and he said, "You a woodworker?" I said, "Yes." He's like, "Oh, would you like to see the work I do?" I said, "Sure." So he was showing me all the bowls he was turning. And then he said, "Hey, would you like to see the shop?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So he takes me out to the shop in this little shed, and he then offers to teach me. And, of course, I jumped at that opportunity, so we worked out a schedule, and once a week for, I forget how many months, I was learning how to use a lathe. And I loved it. The disappointing part is I still haven't sold all of the pieces I'm selling. I actually did try and failed because no one would bid on them on eBay. Yeah, I get not everyone wants a decorative bowl or a bowl for like knickknacks, or if they can, use it for something of one of those two things. Because that's pretty much what I turned. Some bowls could have been used for food, but ended up with a problem that needed to be resolved with epoxy resin or CA glue and things that basically don't put it in your food or any kind of consumable. I only turned one thing that is usable for food, and that was a bowl made out of olive. Very, very nice looking, and it was also the first thing I turned that was green. And that's basically means, okay, it's fresh. Freshly cut down. Funny experience. I'm going to have to tell that another time. The closest I came to turning epoxy resin is filling in a huge hole, or there was actually one. We built this. It's pecan, and it has an inlay, and the inlay is painted. We put this nice decorative pieces in it, and then filled it in with clear epoxy resin, and it looks great. That was the one I sold, and now my niece has it, actually. So, well, I'm looking at the time here and realizing how long I've been talking, and I should be careful because I have a habit of rambling, and I don't want to ramble too much. So I think this is a good place to wrap things up. So, thank you for joining me here on the Beggars Woodshop audio podcast. A reminder, our GoFundMe, Tim Yoder, links are in the description below. If you happen to like this content and want to help further support the channel, like us, subscribe to us. There's a Facebook page. Do a search for the Beggars Woodshop, just like you see it here, and follow us there. And hopefully, I will see you next time, right here on the Beggars Woodshop.